Ooh. Podcast is R&B. That stands for Rhythm Blessings. Thanks for listening to me. Podcast on a Sunday morning, and I don't know what it be.
All right. Welcome back to R&B, Rhythm and Blessings. It's your boys, Russ, Blake. Top of the morning.
Top of the morning, man. Once again, I'm blessed. Feeling blessed to be back on this couch, having the opportunity to have another conversation and document the journey.
Yes, sir. I was kind of thinking it's almost like philosophy is such an ancient way of thought that is getting outdated. Not outdated, but getting lost, I guess, almost like a lost language. You know how certain cultures they lose their cultural traditions, or like the Navajo community, their youth aren't learning how to speak Navajo as frequently. I sometimes feel like that about philosophy, but I'm excited today because we can use our philosophical approach to discuss some cutting edge technology referred to as artificial intelligence. And, that's something that has not been, excuse my sniffles, has not been, I guess, in the public eye as direct as it has been in the past year. And there's some really surprising innovations coming through there. So I'm excited to discuss that today. We had a brief conversation about artificial intelligence previously, right?
Yes,
But
we did.
That wasn't on here, was it?
No, actually, now I think about it, no, that was just us talking.
Yeah. So that's good. So this will be a new perspective that people can hear from us. So Siri, you're looking at your phone right now. Do you talk to Siri?
I will talk to Siri if I'm driving to change my music. So I'll ask to.
And you acknowledge that is artificial intelligence, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's in the palm of your hands. Been around since, when was the first iPhone released? 15 years ago? 16?
Probably somewhere around
something
that,
like that. So some people think that artificial intelligence is this new thing that just, started reaching the masses a year ago. But
it's crazy because I'm looking up and like the first iPod came out October 23rd, 2001.
2001. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's nuts. Which one was that? The Shuffle?
No, that was just the original iPod.
Original. Okay,
yeah.
that came out 1st. Right. The big block one.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so what about the iPhone? When did that come out? Because that's when, I don't think they didn't have Siri with the initial iPhone though. I didn't look up when they put Siri in there, but
yeah, but that was 2007.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So 16 years, just like what I said.
Yeah.
So that's funny because that's the year I moved to Arizona. So that is like a very pivotal moment in my life. The iPhone came out and I moved to my long-term residence and met my homie that year.
Yeah.
So that was a lot going on in 2007, along with the stock market trying to crash like it is currently trying to do. So you know how history repeats itself. And like the dot-com bubble, where there was this large mass adoption of the internet, we are now getting into this large mass adoption of artificial intelligence, which, according to Siri, starting in the iPhone, has actually began earlier than you might have realized. So, what is your, I guess, perspective as far as the potential of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I think that the potential for artificial intelligence is huge. I think that it's always going to be used as a tool. I hope that it's always going to be used as a tool for us to be able to categorize or use the algorithms to learn about new products or help take notes, remember things, just be almost like in the show Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide when Cookie, you know, he's a cyborg and he's able to use like the computer part of him to just like categorize and make his life easier.
Right.
That's what I think artificial intelligence should be for us. But then there's also that like doomsday kind of thing where it could take over if it becomes sentient and has a plan that wants to, you know.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because I did watch the movie Megan yesterday, and I don't want to spoil it for everyone because it was pretty interesting. It's almost like a modern version of Chucky, if you've seen the Chucky doll movies. So this, you know, highly advanced doll is supposed to be the last toy you'll ever have to buy your children. And it's essentially learning your child as your child is learning. And it ends up having this, you know, end of the world type post apocalyptic potential. But after seeing an interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, my I guess thoughts in relation to the potential of the destruction that might come with AI has changed a little bit because he made some good points in that interview that you have made before, kind of, I guess, drawing the line between thought and emotion and empathy and the importance that come along with being able to couple those characteristics with data and knowledge and processing power. With that being said, processing speed and power is is substantially higher in an artificial intelligence software than it is in a human mind. So it can recall information a lot quicker and explain things a lot more efficiently than you and I. And one, I guess, mainstream site that is now giving people the capability to have what's considered a conversational artificial intelligence experience is ChatGPT, which Elon Musk is one of the co-founders of this new website that's become extremely popular because it's had, I believe, over 100 million users adopt the software within a month span, if I'm not mistaken, whereas Facebook, it took a month for 1 million users, and then so it's grown like 100 times faster than a lot of our current leading social media platforms. And there has been some controversy behind this software being available to everyone, because you have to think about kids having access to these things in relation to writing essays and whatnot. Cheating in school essentially is the top, I guess, concern right now with this technology, which is funny to me. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson again makes a good point where people are always cheating. They're always going to cheat. That's going to catch up to them. They're not going to truly benefit from cheating. If they get better grades for a certain period of time, boo-hoo. That's not going to help them excel in the professional world. That's not going to help them develop qualities and skills that are going to be necessary for them to thrive in whatever market they're in. And they'll get exposed for that cheating eventually. And again, it's not going to be new. It's not like all of a sudden people started cheating. People have always been cheating. So it's just going to be the same people using a different avenue to cheat.
Yeah. Well, if we are living integrated with artificial intelligence and it becomes more common, then, you know, what would cheating even really be? Because if they always have a device with them, then maybe intelligence just becomes how we navigate the device rather than what type of information we can hold and recall.
Right, because at the end of the day, you can have the other side of the argument where you're going to have these resources in the real world too. So why be tested without them? That's what a lot of people are arguing in I guess defense of this technology and how we should allow it to be adopted, which I can understand that perspective too, because when I first started learning about artificial intelligence, it did seem scary to me because I did think about all of the negative potential very early on. But as with any technology, if you want to benefit from it and you want to grow with it and not be suppressed by it and not get lost in fear and misunderstanding, then you have to educate yourself and try to adopt it in a way that's appropriate for you and your situation rather than rejecting it and, being fearful long term and not being able to reap the benefits. I listened to a doctor of economics, Dr. Boyce Watkins, and he was talking about his friend that still does not have a cell phone to this day because in the late 90s, right before the dot-com bubble, he made a statement, I'm never going to get a cell phone. They're trying to track me, this and that.
Yeah.
And then he talked about how at the time it sounded silly, but now it's ridiculous that he still doesn't have a cell phone, in his opinion, because this is business professional. So it's extremely difficult to get in contact with him and communicate with him in relation to all the other people that he's working with.
Yeah.
So it's almost making it unfavorable to do business with him at this point, even though he does have all these other skills and assets. His unwillingness to adopt new technology has become an inconvenience to his colleagues. And so that's a good example of how some of these things that we may be fearful of or may not want to accept early on, we just need to put ourselves in a situation where we can understand them and be cautious as we approach, of course.
I wish that we would be able to do like a brain scan of that guy's brain, right? Because they have studies that show that prolonged meditation affects the emotion and empathy center of our brain, which is the amygdala. And, if you meditate for 10, 15 minutes a day, after a set amount of time, your amygdala shape changes. That's neuroplasticity because our brain has the ability to morph based off what we're doing. So I'm wondering for that guy, since he hasn't really been tapped into technology, if there has been any effects on that, and that kind of gets into how you were saying some of the Navajo children stop learning their native tongue. I think that is one of the cons of artificial intelligence is that we're going to move more into a left brain ideology, which is all logical thinking rather than understanding more of our right brain, like spontaneous, creative, abstract side of what it is to be a human.
Yeah. But with that being said, also, artificial intelligence is being used as translator. So in a way, it's connecting communities and cultures, even though, part of culture is our communication. Some cultures communicate through clicks and whistles or dance and singing, and then their own native language. And so it's a controversial thing to say that it's a good thing that we're all kind of blending into one global communicative system. And that's kind of what's happening as far as the internet connection, the changes in how currency is traded and distributed, and now how information is being stored and shared as well.
Yeah. And,
so,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you.
No, I was going to say, like, because I just randomly thought about, the story in the Bible of the Tower of Babel. Everyone got together and was speaking one tongue, and then they tried to create like a ladder up to heaven because they were all able to work together. And in the story of the Bible, God breaks the tower ladder that they're trying to build and makes them all speak different languages, almost to say like, yo, don't try to unify and build something to try to overcome or understand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that is where the controversy comes as far as artificial intelligence, one, becoming more intelligent than us as humans, and two, basically taking over the world.
Yeah. And it could just it's possible that it could just get shot down again. You know what I mean? This could be like a new version of the Tower of Babel that we're trying to like come together and like all be logical to understand.
No, yeah, that's a great point because I think that is inevitable if this grows out of control in the way that some of our Hollywood films have prophesied, such as I, Robot with Will Smith. So Yeah, that makes sense. But I think that initially, like as we're using it now, as long as it's used as a tool for good and a way for people to have better access to resources and be able to communicate and do positive things for the world, I think that that positive energy will continue to grow in an exponential rate and circulate rather than turning into disaster.
Hmm.
But I do think there's also a fine line that we as consumers need to pay attention to, and then I'm hoping that these technology developers are aware of. I'm sure they are, and I would also anticipate some type of government regulation in the future, probably after something strange or unsettling happens with this technology. That's usually how things get fixed.
Hmm.
Something bad has to happen first rather than us anticipating and trying to prioritize, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's interesting because something bad, like there's modern phenomena that shows, and I'm going to pull this up because I actually just saved this, but there's a modern phenomena that shows that people are like way more anxious and depressed in this day and age than they were even 30 years ago. And especially when it
right.
comes to like teenagers, specifically young girls. And a lot of this has to do with the image and the influence of social media. And so it's just interesting because it's like, what will be the indicator to show that we. So yeah, the Psychology Today released a statement that the average teenager has the same level of anxiety as the average psych patient in the early 1950s,
Oh, wow.
and that's today in 2023.
Wow. Yeah, I believe that. And so I'm glad you bring that up because obviously there is a positive correlation between the use of social media and technology and mental health disorders.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think the role of mental health has in combating the negative side effects of artificial intelligence? Do you think that artificial intelligence will be a tool for us to improve the general mental health of our population, or will it continue to take us kind of in that higher uh, um, the higher frequency of mental disorder?
Yeah, and you started this by saying we're kind of getting away from philosophy. And philosophy is always intriguing and stimulating throughout history because it takes this phenomena of life and puts it into some type of understandable words, and it's beautiful, like a great painting or something like that. But with artificial intelligence, we don't need to explore our minds as much because we have the information, in our fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like an augmented reality.
Mm-hmm.
So mental health, literally, it's almost like if we didn't need to go to the gym anymore and we could just artificially grow our muscles.
Mm-hmm.
You would miss out on all that beneficial process of working out your body, even though you seemingly have the end result.
Yeah.
The correlation here would be you have the information,
Yeah.
or you could have the strength, but the process to gain it is what has us healthy.
Yeah.
And creates kind of our identity and our process towards goal-oriented behavior.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that that's gonna be like a scale we have to balance as AI gets greater. We're gonna have to figure out how to exercise that right side of our brain and understand philosophy, almost like you're saying that Navajo tongue. We kind of got to figure out a way to still understand that.
Yeah. And that's what's going to set people apart because
Yeah.
a lot of people are worried about artificial intelligence replacing them in the professional world and it really taking away from a lot of job opportunities. But job opportunities will evolve just as technology does. So, what's really going to save people from being in a situation where their skill set isn't as valuable is prioritizing the things that artificial intelligence is not able to do yet, which
Right.
is be empathetic, be be innovative, because right now artificial intelligence is limited to whatever data we're able to upload to it, and whatever information we currently are aware of as individuals, but it's just a collective, I guess, source of all that information. So still, from humans, artificial intelligence doesn't know anything that humans haven't discovered. But I do think that that's a goal in the future, is for artificial intelligence to be able to perform in a autonomous fashion, so that it can solve problems without needing to collaborate with humans. And I found this site yesterday that I thought was pretty cool, because so again, ChatGPT, that is a free service right now. They're thinking about making it a subscription base, because of how many people have been interested so fast. Money is going to drive all of these things. That was developed by Elon Musk, and the Microsoft has recently invested $10 billion into OpenAI, which made ChatGPT. And OpenAI only made, I think, $350 million last year. So that's like a significant investment that's gonna just catapult the progression of this company. So Microsoft investing in OpenAI, ChatGPT. There's Microsoft Teams has become extremely popular in the past couple of years since the pandemic started. And now there's a site called Stork.ai, which says it's ChatGPT for Teams. So you can actually have a Microsoft Teams experience online, to where you're having a video conference, but instead of it just being between you and your coworkers, you can involve artificial intelligence into your conversation in your meeting.
Yeah.
So this site will dictate, transcribe the entire meeting, have all of the bullet points, decipher who's saying what, keep the records, but also provide data points and suggestions as you have your conversation.
Wow.
So I think that is extremely significant in this conversation, because actually having the collaboration of artificial intelligence and business decisions and processes is a huge step towards some of the things that people are worried about, but also the excelling the efficiency of businesses, and taking away some of the subjective input that humans have, that often prevent us from coming to a conclusion between opposing parties.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's going to make efficiency and productivity much greater.
So I was thinking, eventually we might have a artificial intelligence politician,
Maybe.
because there's not going to be so much opinion and emotion, and there's going to be more database and objectivity, and being able to draw data from two sides and bring them together to try to make solutions that aren't going to be biased from the individual who is the politician, I think will be, life-changing.
Yeah. I want to see an artificial intelligence shaman. You know what I'm saying? That's what I want to see, if something like that is possible.
Wow.
Because everything that's logical, I totally feel like they're going to be great to be a tool and helpful to the human race. But I want to know if AI is ever going to be able to understand that like deeper human level of experience, something like nirvana. I know AI, why would AI want to experience nirvana? But if it's going to become more and more human, like, I'm wondering what it's going to look like. As
So
far as
I
that
still
type of
have doubts of technology being able to experience those things. Again, I have to remind everyone that the iPhone was not here 20 years ago. The car was not here 150 years ago. Now we're about to have electric cars and flying cars and all types of stuff. So these things are advancing at a rapid pace, exponential growth we're looking at. And it's hard to see when we've only been around for our lifetime, because we only know what we've seen with our own eyes and what we've read in a history book. But if you put it into the perspective of millions of years of the earth being in existence, and now us having all of these technologies come at us this quickly, I don't think it's out of the question to say that we're going to have resources and technologies in 50 years that we can't really imagine at this point in time.
Yeah, which might look like an artificial intelligent monk, a
Yeah.
teacher of that
And-
type of stuff. That's artificial intelligence.
But at this point in time, I do agree with you in thinking that that's not possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that is what is going to, keep humanity alive and relevant.
Sure, yeah, because there's always going to be that distinction. There, you're going to have to still deal with that, and that's why I think that's a huge reason why we have these soaring anxiety and depression numbers, suicide rates, and all these things going up, because our society is making more and more of a shift into saying that left brain logical thinking is human, and then we inside of us kind of feel lost because it's like, hold on, but I have all these random spontaneous things going on inside of me that are not logical. And then people feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, now I'm anxious, now I'm depressed, now,
Yeah, so that's why I think that the people that prioritize their mental health and their self-care and their self-love right now at this time in 2023 are going to be the ones that are excelling in 20 years, because all of these things are going to be changing around us that we really don't have any control of, but we do have control of what's happening within us. So if you get that in check now, you're going to have a foot ahead of a lot of people, because you see a lot of people around us that are going in the opposite direction, losing control of what's within, and they have no control of what's outside. So that's what puts us in this heightened level of anxiety and fear, because we have no control. So the little things that you have control of, last week we talked about routines and consistency. I kind of just briefly jotted down some things that I think are gonna, keep us from being replaced by AI. And consistency is one of those, because if you're not consistent, then a computer can replace you, because a computer can work 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So the least you can do is have this level of perseverance and consistency and routine that's gonna allow you to continue to grow at a fast enough pace to be aware of these things and learn as they grow, and also grow yourself within that process as well. Then also the importance of ingenuity and being comfortable with yourself as an individual. I think that that's happening a lot more. We went through a phase, I think, where everyone wanted to be exactly the same, and we had kind of cookie cutter groups of people. But now I feel like we're in this emerging phase where everybody wants to explore how they're different. Like nobody really wants to be the same, it seems, anymore. At least that's how they portray or what they say. What their actions might resemble someone else's, and they might be kind of mirroring another person's I guess life in a way, because we have such immediate access to see other people's lives now with social media. So of course there's that factor, but people want to stand out because they do see how I guess ostentatious some people are, and how those people get their attention, and how easy it is to kind of get lost in the crowd nowadays if what you're looking for is that attention in relation to your social media presence, and a lot of times your business as well. How do you see AI, or I'm sorry, do you think there's any significant qualities that people need to be, I guess, cognizant of in this emerging AI environment?
One for sure is going to be understanding how to fact check, right? Because you're going to have all this information at your fingertips, but to be able to understand like a process of how do I know what database can I compare this to make sure that I'm not getting erroneous information. So that's one, definitely. And then another thing that I think is going to be very important for people to understand is, I guess it's the positive. The thing that I really love about AI is how we can take our education into our own hands. Like if you want to develop a skill, you can find all this information on your computer, and you don't need to go out to a school or pay for a program for a lot of skills.
Right, right. And that's one of the big benefits that business owners and um researchers and scientists are pointing out, is that the potential for automation that comes with AI, and using AI to really I guess utilize the full potential of the technologies that we already have by teaching the AI to do things for us more on a schedule and a routine, is going to be crucial in business development and increasing productivity, and ultimately for people that have, I guess, less hours required of them in the workplace, because again, our jobs aren't going to be replaced, they're just going to evolve into something else. So this will provide an opportunity for us to get away from the 40-hour work week that people have been talking about and complaining about for so long. Having artificial intelligence pick up some of those little monotonous small tasks throughout the day that really anybody could do, but we need a human to do. Inputting data, transferring funds, analyzing data in certain ways. All of that can be automated now and done by artificial intelligence. There's even software to develop automatic day trades for the stock market. So as those things develop, you might see dramatic shifts in how Wall Street is managed. How financial advisors have to navigate. I mean, a lot of these things are going to be just available in the palm of our hands, and we won't need to call someone for advice. But again, you do need to fact check the information that you're getting, because even like with ChatGPT, I bring up this article from Bloomberg. They say that unlike a search on Google or Ping, ChatGPT currently offers no context about where it sourced the information used to build its answers. And OpenAI acknowledges that the tool's responses can be incorrect and shouldn't be relied on as accurate. So, recently I've been using ChatGPT for some posts that I've been making in relation to like herbal supplements and stuff, but I will go on Google and look at other sources to just make sure that the summary it's giving me is accurate. But I really just use it more to summarize the information that I'm getting.
And I guess that brings up another kind of concern that I have, because already in our academic fields, we touched on philosophy a little bit, and how, in academia, philosophy pretty much has its origins in Greece, right? In ancient Greece, when like further research and information shows that their teachers were coming from Africa that taught them a lot of the foundations of their beliefs, and even the mythological archetypes and all these other things. So if that is already like fringe information right now, and it's Black History Month, so a lot of our history has been made confusing and obstructed, whether on purpose or not. But if that's already like fringe information and difficult to comprehend, well, if we have some type of AI database that's telling us what the truth is, but it is created and basically the software is made by the institution that is already, not having the correct information, then we can lose ourselves more and more. Because what's going to happen, if I try to figure out the origin of my people and AI tells me that I come from a plantation in South Carolina, because it doesn't understand truly like the people. You know what I mean?
And that is $1 million point, because again, AI is limited to the data that is programmed within it and the resources that are available to it to search. And a lot of the truthful data, as far as history goes, is not readily available on the internet, and is not distributed freely in the educational system. So that does pose a problem, because there is certainly potential for there to be bias within the answers provided by these artificially intelligent web sources. And I cannot think off the top of my head how that would be avoided.
Yeah, because I mean, right now there's people who are like woke or whatever. You know, there's people in the major cities in America who walk around with pamphlets and try to teach people the knowledge and the science. And there's all, there's all types of these different groups and people, and they usually look pretty crazy,
Yeah.
right? So as we start to develop more and more what logic looks like, that type of person is going to look more and more crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see what AI and the growing nature of this does to our like behavioral health facilities, and the impact it's going to have on those people that are just like kind of far out there when it comes to like the information that they believe in and that the rhetoric that they use.
Yeah. Unfortunately, all of those innovations come down to funding. And we know that our mental health system has historically not had great funding at all.
And historically has been very misunderstood. And that's a whole nother thing. Like it's like we're leaving one battle that we haven't finished yet to just start a new exploration. And it's kind of like, hold on. We don't even understand this yet though.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what's going on. But the reason for that is because the potential of profitability.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of our problem the entire time. America started off as a ship, which was the first company, and it was really, just investors that put their money into this ship's exploration. They found land that was useful and people that they could take as slaves, and invested more and more money, and the idea of profitability and efficiency just started here, and now it's expanding and expanding.
Right.
But I'm not saying that it's going to be bad for us. I'm just saying that we have to be aware of how that can be bad and has been bad.
Right. As with everything we talk about here, right? We're just wanting to promote awareness and provoke thought so that people can, again, be educated on these things and do their own research and draw their own conclusions and hopefully relay those thoughts back to us, but more importantly, implement those things in their lives so that they can keep up with the pace of change, because change is inevitable. And change is a lot more difficult if you're not prepared for it. But here it is, looking at you in the eye. There's a lot of skeptics in relation to things that are already present. Sometimes it takes a long time for us to accept that things are the way that they are, because things do change so quickly. And you think about somebody that's in their 60s right now, to have had the internet explode in the way that it did in your 40s has to be a very, I don't even know the word to put behind it. That experience is a once in a lifetime experience, and you can't really be prepared for how that's going to change your life, because again, that took away from a lot of people's jobs, and it instilled this high level of fear in the entire world because of the potential of the internet. But now we know the internet's not scary. I mean, there's scary things on the internet, and bad things can happen through the internet, but bad things can happen at your front door too. So you just have to keep things in perspective and be educated and be aware, so that you're not being taken advantage of, but at the same time, your awareness and your understanding is going to keep you from being fearful.
Yeah, and that's going to be more difficult and more difficult to understand if you are being taken advantage of, right? Right now, there's people that are like, okay, I just talked about going camping, and I opened up my phone, and the first thing I see is an ad for a tent. And then they're like, that's kind of weird, but it's kind of cool. They don't have any idea how that it could be you getting taken advantage of. Right? It might be cool that the algorithm's suggesting you something, but what does that really mean about your data and what's being collected and how valuable is it?
And that's the importance of keeping yourself disconnected from the internet at times, because the more that you're connected to that device in your pocket, the more that it thinks it's going to know you, and the more that it's going to make suggestions for you. And it's hard for us to really say what those suggestions are intended to do.
Exactly. Or what kind of profile exists that says it's us.
Yeah.
And then this is as it goes further and further, that profile is going to look closer and closer to a real human. So the potential for losing ourselves in this process has already kind of started and is
Oh, yeah.
great for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it started as soon as the internet was created.
Yeah, because we became profiles.
Yep.
Right? Like literally we become profiles. And then that takes a infinite being and categorizes them.
We become profiles that can be hacked into.
Yeah.
And your settings can be adjusted without you realizing it. There's some metaphors for you to think about.
There's some metaphors for you to think about. One thing that I think is pretty pertinent to this conversation is a great Western psychologist named Carl Jung that I'm sure most people have heard of. He was a student of Sigmund Freud, and he pretty much was someone who advanced a lot of the things that we think of now in psychology, like dream analysis and the idea of the collective unconscious, right? So the collective unconscious is referred to the idea that a segment of the deepest unconscious mind is genetically inherited and not shaped by personal experience. So this is a notion that was originally published by Carl Jung, and it became huge in our field of psychology, especially the psychoanalytic field. Now, it's very important that they make the distinction that it is genetically inherited, right? So a lot of people have the idea of the mind as like a logic computer base where we're programmed strictly from what we've learned, right? That is the blank slate theory, that you learn everything that you are from your environment, your upbringing, your interactions. And Carl Jung's idea and that whole field of psychology that has to do with the collective unconscious believes that there was already knowledge here that you're basically unfolding, and it's been, your ancestors have used it for thousands and thousands of years. People have tapped into it, and it is like what makes us human.
Yeah. And there's a lot of power in that theory because thinking as far as a blank slate theory, that's self-limiting, I believe, to think that you're starting from fresh. There, you have no background knowledge, you have no predisposed gifts or strengths, and having no history. That's a large burden to have on you, to think that you have to, start the book from page 1 when really you're being inserted into the book at page 1,000,000, right? So us leaving our legacy and being able to interact in a way that's going to be self-fulfilling, but also influential to the people around us, and believing that that legacy has, one, already been left by those before us, and two, will continue to be left along the line of time. That's very important for someone that wants to I guess maximize their potential in the short amount of time we have in the physical world.
Exactly. And I bring that up because we have this idea that our brain is similar to AI or similar to a computer, when really it's actually like a whole different type of mechanism. And the AI will always just be a tool, almost like a calculator, to help us understand things and make calculations, but can never truly mimic that human brain and that ancestral history and that energy that is always been relevant to the human experience.
I think it's because people think of things so literally also, because as far as a computer goes, our brain is pretty similar. If you think of the circuit board and our neural network and how those neurons interact through electrical signals and different chemicals in our brains that are messaging each other and creating reactions and creating pictures, just as our computers and our phones create pictures through those pathways and communications. We have a different level of consciousness that a computer isn't able to mimic, and that's what Russ is pointing to. At least not at this point in time. So the understanding of that level of consciousness and being able to develop your neuroplasticity and have that internal locus of control in terms of your thought processes and your actions throughout the day, those are all things that make us human. And a lot of humans don't take advantage of those capabilities, and that's how you get lost in the matrix, right? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because just quickly, and I'll put all this information up. It says on average, the human brain contains 100 billion neurons, and each neuron may be connected up to 10,000 other neurons, passing signals to each other via as many as 1,000 trillion synapses. So the idea here is that all of those like connectors and nodes that are sending and receiving information in your brain are almost in like a infinite amount, right? So more than maybe a logic or a circuit board, our brain is kind of more like our universe with a whole bunch of like random like novas and black holes and stars that are coming and going and abstract spontaneous movement.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And so that's happening within our thought process, but that's happening at all levels of nature, right?
Exactly.
Because us as individuals, it's almost like this chaotic synchrony. You know, you look at a street system from a bird's eye view and how all the cars are just, you know, passing right by each other. And you speed that up and see people walking across the street. It looks crazy if you've never seen a time lapse like that in New York or something. But that's what's going on in our brains. That's what's going on the macro level as far as our physical beings. And that's going down to the atomic level as well.
Yep.
Because if you think about the protons and neutrons and electrons and how they're developed by quarks, quarks are continuously bouncing back and forth in a random fashion, and that's at the basis of our being. That there's just this constant chaos and movement, but you know, working in a way that on a grand scale, that chaos happening trillions and trillions and trillions times over and over comes into this beautiful picture of us being able to interact with each other and have these thoughts and conversations.
Yes, synchronized. And that's why, as science and the science that studies these types of things, as it has become greater, we understand that we don't know as much, because the field of metaphysics has shown, like you're saying, at the atomic level, there's random occurrences that cannot be predicted. And it happens at the atomic level. It happens at our thought level. There's also miracles. You work in a hospital. I'm sure if you were there long enough or talked to somebody who had, you know, years and years of experience, they've probably seen some type of miracle happen. I mean, I've read some accounts of like people overcoming death or things that had no reason why it happened. Have you ever experienced anything like that? Like seen somebody who was like, there was no way that they were supposed to live past this, or they're...
You know, not necessarily. You know, we see similar situations multiple times, and so we kind of anticipate how things are going to go, especially within the pandemic. We had people experiencing almost the same exact disease process, having very similar comorbidities and demographic profile. So when they would come into the hospital, we had seen that course of the disease from start to finish so many times prior that we would kind of have a game plan and know what to expect. And I think that that's a lot of cases, especially when it comes down to like a code situation or cardiac arrest. We do have an algorithm that we follow of how to manage those patients and resuscitate them. So, you know, there's a lot of extremely ill patients in the ICU setting that nobody would really expect to thrive after a code situation, but that's also the reason that we have so much research and practice that goes into those algorithms and our team model and how to manage those situations. So, you know, anytime somebody dies, it's amazing that we're able to bring them back to life. I guess here's a good example. I'll try not to be too specific because of patient information, and this was kind of a unique happening. But basically, husband and wife are driving in a car. Wife's unresponsive. Husband's doing CPR on her while driving to the hospital.
Wow.
Now, if you think of the mechanics of CPR, how you're supposed to hold your hands, we expect people to be on a hard surface and rotating compressors and giving breaths in between. That's optimal resuscitation. But this individual performed CPR on his own with one hand while driving a car and safely got his wife to the hospital where she recovered. And when I took care of her, she was able to speak. She was off of the ventilator. Like, she was a little slow in her processing, but we would hopefully expect that she can regain some of that cognitive and physical function. But she was able to move all of her extremities, and she was completely neurologically intact. And that's, in my opinion, a miracle, because it just doesn't make sense in terms of the perfusion to the brain, the amount of time that her heart wasn't beating, the amount of time that she wasn't breathing, because again, nobody was delivering breaths to her. So to have adequate oxygenation of your tissues and not have long-term cardiac damage or anoxic brain injury, they call it, when you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain. She wasn't suffering from any of that. So that was a blessing, certainly. And she even had rib fractures, that's an A+ CPR, and that's with one hand again. So that was pretty amazing to me that he was able to think that quickly, because even me as a healthcare provider, I don't know how I would react to someone being unresponsive while I'm driving, but I don't think my first reaction would be to continue to drive and try to do CPR. I think my mind would try to do one or the other. So that was very impressive.
Yeah, that's very miraculous. And yeah, so there's like stories of people, and it's not common. It's anomalies. I understand that, but they happen. Stories of like people with tumors who out of nowhere, they were told that they were going to die from this, and out of nowhere their tumors are gone.
You're right.
And we started off talking about kind of that like philosophy and how the Navajo children aren't taught that language anymore. Well, their medicine men used to be way more abstract in their practices, right? It was a lot of like herbs, but it was also a lot of like praying and energy healing, right?
Yeah.
And that looks weird to us now. We kind of categorize all that type of stuff as like voodoo or witchcraft, but there was a time where it was the leading health practices.
Right. And then, but that brings up the question of how effective were those practices?
Right. Definitely not as effective as what we
expectancies
have
were
now.
a lot shorter and things like that. But I do still think that a lot of those things should be allowed to develop rather than just being replaced.
And I know here in Phoenix, I know in Scottsdale, they have like a really big like naturopathic health facility, right, where people kind of learn those types of things more.
That is a growing I guess niche within healthcare and a growing profession, naturopathic doctors, because they do utilize I guess ancient medicine, Eastern medicine, holistic homeopathic medicine, in addition to some of the modern modalities and technologies, which I'm a big advocate of that, because I think that the pharmaceutical industry has definitely too tight of a grip on our healthcare system. And I do believe in a lot of the treatment methods that are more related to lifestyle change and diet. So that's what is the basis of naturopathic medicine. And again, the naturopathic doctors can still prescribe medications. They often do, but that's not their primary method of treatment, which I think is very significant in us trying to revolutionize the healthcare process, because we clearly have an issue with how we're managing that at this point in time, because of the skyrocketing numbers as far as all of the serious chronic illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, diabetes, etc. Some would argue that it's correlating with the increase of the population, because if you think of the larger number of people, less resources, all of those things would lead to us to assume that there's going to be more disease in that process as well. But really, it stems from lack of education and a lack of distribution of those resources.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that do hope to see change within the naturopathic realm, because it is costly, because unfortunately, health insurance companies don't support that type of medicine at this point in time. So people have to pay out of pocket. So it's only available to individuals that are able to afford to do that, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I hope to see that change in the near future.
Yeah. And same with me. I think that that's where we integrate all of this growing technology with the past information. It's like it has to be balanced, because I feel like it has to be the same thing in psychology. I don't necessarily agree with just the behavioral field where people are seen as something that can be conditioned, like Pavlov's dog as the base philosophy of a human experience. I don't believe that. I believe that it needs to be more of like the integrated holistic stuff paired with the new discoveries of the brain, kind of like you're saying. But that type of psychology is also a thing that you would have to come out of pocket for, because insurance companies aren't paired with those types of things. And I just feel like that's a huge thing in my life, is to push to build that type of institution and way to help people.
Nice. Yeah. I want to pull us back to the artificial intelligence though, real quick, just because we're talking about health now. You know, we've been talking about how artificial intelligence utilizes data to create solutions. And one thing that is emerging in popularity is having these continuous glucose monitors that people can see on an app on their phone. They can see their glucose levels and kind of see how their body reacts to certain foods and what's going to cause them to have certain insulin spikes and whatnot. So I want everybody to be ready for that technology to advance to where we have a continuous monitor that's going to give us all of our lab results, right? As far as a complete blood count with your red blood cell, white blood cell count, hemoglobin, hematocrit, et cetera, having all of your electrolyte and mineral levels of your blood. That in the future we'll be able to continuously have a view of those levels. And then to think about artificial intelligence and where it's going with its capabilities, if you link that continuous monitoring and give the artificial intelligence that data, then it will have the potential to suggest what we should be eating throughout the day, what supplements we need, what medications we need, how much sleep we should get, when we should go to sleep, when we wake up. And that brings us back to the level of automation that's going to come into our lives, because we already have our alarm set. Some people, their coffee automatically comes on in the morning. Their car is a remote start. It already gets warmed up for them. Their lights turn off from their phone, and they lock their doors and close their garage from their phone. All these things being automated are going to eventually get crammed into one source. We have these smart homes emerging with the Alexa Echoes, and you can even time into your Siri device. So just be prepared for those to be linked into your biologic makeup as well. Because again, back to Elon Musk, who helped develop ChatGPT, he is an advocate of us developing microchips to put into our brains so that we can have assistance of artificial intelligence in our internal processing power.
Yeah, Neuralink.
Not a fan of that idea.
Yeah, it says right here, Neuralink could begin to test the motor cortex technology in humans in as soon as 6 months. And this was written in December or January of 2023. Musk said, obviously, we want to be extremely careful and certain that it will work well before putting a device in a human brain. But we are submitted, I think, most of our paperwork to the FDA. So he's pretty much in that final process and about to bring this thing out. And that's going to have kind of the same effect. I mean, early on, Neuralink is going to be used to help kind of process people with disabilities, certain ways that their brain isn't functioning at normal. It's going to try to support that. But as it grows and grows, you can already imagine what is going to be next and what's going to be the function of being able to kind of use your brain. I saw a video where they installed Neuralink in the mind of a monkey. I think it was a chimpanzee. And then taught that chimp how to play the Pong video game just using his brain. So I'll put the link in our video, but the chimp literally has learned how to play Pong with just using his mind to control the analog stick.
Wow.
So like I'm saying, it's gonna be wild when this technology really advances and like we start to understand what it is.
Mm-hmm. And again, my dad tells me that I take Hollywood too seriously in movies, but to me, it's like every 20 years we have something happen where you look back at a movie, you're like, dang, they kind of predicted that. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm thinking of like Planet of the Apes, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what's going on there. Them trying to alter the intelligence of chimpanzees in an experimental fashion, and then it gets out of control. And then again with iRobot. Can you imagine a combination of iRobot and Planet of the Apes going on at the same time?
For real, yo. I know. That's why I really liked how you said like the Navajo children that don't get taught their native tongue, because that's why we always need to make sure that we remember that native tongue. We remember the more abstract parts of human nature and what everyone went through to get us to this level, because it really matters. And if we throw it out, like we're gonna throw ourselves out. You know? And that's why philosophy is always going to be, even though if you go to school and study philosophy, people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like the only thing you're going to do is become a teacher of philosophy. But it's so necessary to know the history of philosophy and to know like how the brain and human nature has been broken down into a narrative form.
Yes. So, man, the Neuralink thing is crazy to me, because that's here and present, and that right there is like some sci-fi type stuff that we are staring right in the eye. I don't even know how to elaborate my thoughts in relation to that, because that of all of the things with artificial intelligence and technology, like I kind of force myself to be accepting of these things because they're here. I can't stop them, so I might as well understand them, and I can avoid them if I need to, but to not be fearful and be able to utilize some of these technologies that are going to be available, you have to educate yourself. And Neuralink is one of those that I'm struggling to accept. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm trying to wrap my mind around how that's not gonna be bad.
Well, we can take it a step further, because there's people that theorize that one day we're going to be able to download our consciousness into a device, which would make you immortal. Now that's kind of getting far out on some sci-fi stuff, but it is a hypothesis, and it is something that could be possible. I don't know what it means to download the contents of your consciousness, because I had come from the belief that we're a little dualistic, material and immaterial. Obviously, if you can download the contents of your consciousness, that is a completely material worldview.
So they try to make it sound like they can already do that. They can, you can input data, right? So a computer can learn you. It can learn your diction, like how you talk, what you say, certain words you like to use, your slang, your grammar. Technology can analyze all those things down to the periods and commas. Now, with that being said, there's also artificial intelligence that can, what is it? Microsoft. Microsoft, either Microsoft or Amazon, one of the big tech companies has already been using technology that can learn your voice so that it can mimic your voice and have a almost exact sounding copy produced by a computer, making your voice and saying whatever the computer wants to say with it. So that if you were to couple your computer generated voice with your computer generated habits as far as you thinking and speaking, then they can at least, I guess, fake that consciousness in a forever, I guess, digital form. But have you heard of Michael Saylor?
No.
So he owns MicroStrategies, which is one of the largest tech companies, very large investment firm that has a large holding of Bitcoin. And so he has been one of these big Bitcoin promoters for years and years. And a couple of days ago, this audio recording of him came out to where all of a sudden he's like, oh, I made a big mistake. Like, I shouldn't have bought my Bitcoin, this and that.
Yeah.
And then it's getting spread around the internet. But most people recognize, like, this was artificial intelligence that made this. Like, somebody fabricated that conversation never happened.
Wow.
And that was the reason there was no video behind it. There was no context. People were like, who is he talking to? There's nobody else talking. Like, why is he saying this out loud? Like, who got this information? Right?
Yeah.
And then it was the conclusion that this was developed by artificial intelligence. And everyone knew that because this technology was being heavily promoted just a few weeks ago. It was exposed. Oh, now you can create a artificially generated image of someone. I saw one of Morgan Freeman. It was an image of him talking, and it was his voice, but it wasn't actually him. So everyone was aware except for the individual who posted it, who happened to have over 1 million followers. So then it became viral, just like everything else. But I thought that was interesting that, that technology apparently is just now being released, and it's already creating these controversies on these very significant topics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm very, like I was saying earlier, I'm very interested to see how this affects the behavioral health field, because right now, if you were to talk to a lot of people who experience schizophrenia, and especially like the hallucination type of schizophrenia, they make a lot of statements like, there's a microchip in my brain, the government is tracking my thoughts, the government, like that's a common like thing for a schizophrenic patient to say. So it's going to be interesting when that could be possible. It's going to be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just going to catapult the mental health crisis, because if you are aware that someone next to you actually has a chip in your brain, then there's definitely going to be large numbers of people that are paranoid that, wait, do I have a chip in my brain? Like, why am I thinking this way? Because people don't process their thoughts, they don't process their emotions. So when unexpected things happen to them, we try to rationalize, and if part of that rationalization is there could potentially be technology that's controlling me, that's a problem to me.
For real. And it's kind of crazy, because if you think about human history, it's like when we were first trying to forge societies and have safety, everything was unpredictable. It was like, dude, a tiger could come up and eat us. Like, it was just all unpredictable, and we were just so blessed in creating these ways to try to move forward. And now we're getting into the point where we want everything to be predictable. Like, we want to be able to predict every single thing. And I think that's why virtual reality and augmented reality is going to be so appetizing, because it starts to let us control outcomes. So we're moving far and far away from a lion might pull up on our band and eat us, and getting to the point where it's like every single thing that happens we can predict. And our egos are going to love that, because that takes away the threat to our existence. But that part of us that's like the archetypal hero that goes into the unknown is probably going to feel diminished, because there's not going to be as much unknown. But that's like doomsday thinking. I'm not saying that it's necessarily what it is right now, but it is like doomsday thinking.
I mean, I wouldn't even label it that dramatically. I think it's pretty realistic. It might not happen on a grand scale to like every person in the world, but that's most likely something that a certain number of people will experience eventually. That's just the direction that things are moving. So
keep that archetypal hero inside of you. Give it more unpredictable things to go do. That would be my suggestion. And what I'm trying to do in my life is putting myself in environments where I might not know I'm safe, or where I need to go find new things, just to exercise that part of me that's been here for thousands of years that needs exploration and frontiers. It needs it.
Yeah, because you have to have that balance. Last week we talked about developing a routine and having consistency, but the having monotony in your life and being bored with what you're doing and not having new experiences is definitely going to be a setback. And I don't think that's something that we specified when we had that discussion, because we might have made it sound like you do the same thing every single day, you're going to be successful and you'll be happy, but that's not really how it works. You have repetition and routine in your life so that you have time to do new things and have new experiences, and have the resources and time to go on vacations and see new places, rather than you having to use your last $5 and your last one day of PTO and all those factors. You can set yourself up to optimize those situations and be able to enjoy them more. So, time utilization is very important. Being adventurous is very important. Not having irrational fear is very important. I spoke about my fears briefly on our previous episode. I'm afraid of spiders, all sizes of spiders. I hate them. And then I'm afraid of being hospitalized. Those are like my two biggest fears. And I don't think the hospitalization fear is very irrational, but my spider fear is kind of irrational, but it's a fear nonetheless. And I had a conversation with one of my patients a few weeks ago. She's very apologetic because she was claustrophobic, so I couldn't get an MRI completed with her. And she's like, "I'm so sorry." Like, we gave her medication to calm her down and stuff. It still wasn't effective. And I told her, you don't have to apologize. I understand that you have fear. Fear is subjective, so it's difficult because we can't explain to someone why we're afraid of something always. Sometimes you can. You can't explain to anyone what that fear causes you to feel. We describe it as fear, but we all feel things differently. So fear for one person can be crippling. They can't talk, they can't move, and they're just like a deer in the headlights. And the fear for another person just causes them to make a decision so that they can avoid a certain situation, right?
Yeah.
So understanding that, one, it's okay to be fearful, but two, we need to educate ourselves in what it is that we're afraid of, because most of the time that fear just lacks from or stems from a lack of understanding.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't understand what spiders are poisonous and which ones won't harm me. I just think that they all have the potential to bite me. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of times, I mean, we were talking about Carl Jung. His psychology also showed that a lot of our phobias are archetypal as well. And they come out in like dreams as different symbols and whatnot. You never know. You could have had an ancestor that life was ended because of a poisonous spider,
right?
And then that could be in your genetics. Like, this ended us, so now we have the phobia. Or the dark. The dark is another archetypal phobia.
Yeah.
Or mice, things that carry diseases with them. Just all these things that are archetypes that are in a lot of us. Claustrophobia makes sense too. You could have been trapped. Like, there's all these things that archetypally could have been our demise, and now we're here with all of our ancestors like information, like, stay away from that, stay away from that, stay away from that if you're trying to live.
Yeah, and that's why you can't ignore these feelings that you have, and don't discredit yourself for feeling a certain way. Like, whatever you're feeling, that's you. That it's there for a reason. You have to process those things, try to understand them. Don't belittle yourself for it. Don't let anyone else put you down for fears you may have or weaknesses you may have. You just have to acknowledge them and work on it, and you can overcome those things. It's possible, because everything that there is in the world to overcome, it's been done before. So you're perfectly capable, just like the people before us that have done it.
And I love this field of psychology that Carl Jung has, because it really makes sense. So a symbol of overcoming in our stories and mythological stories are dragons, right? That's like a huge thing of like a hero story, a dragon. And if you think about what a dragon is, it's like a combination of our three biggest things that have taken us out. So a snake, right? That's like one of the biggest archetypal like enemies that a human being has. We don't understand a snake's movement, and it is dangerous. Fire. Fire is another thing historically that we have not been able to control, has not made sense, and has taken us out historically, right? And then things that are flying, birds, things that are in the air and can move on quickly. We had no way to fight them or understand them, right? So a dragon is like a reptile, fire, and bird put together.
Yeah.
It's like our base archetypal fears made into one symbol. And the hero story is always that we face that and overcome it to become our greatest self. That's Jungian psychology.
That
right?
There was a new perspective for me. I like that.
Yeah, that's real.
The trinity of evil.
Yeah, for sure. And we have the hero in us. We face it and overcome it over and over again to become our best self.
Yeah. I love that. That makes a lot of sense to me. So, we kind of stray away from the idea of AI a little bit, just because it is going to be, or it already is, so interrelated with so many things. I don't know if a large number of people are aware of how prevalent this technology is and how quickly it's growing and its potential in a positive and negative way. So I'm glad that we took these little diversions in the conversation because it's important to see the connections that are going to happen with this technology. And again, we are going to utilize it in a manner that will allow us to continue to grow internally and just use this as a resource to have a better understanding of the external. I discussed important qualities for us to prioritize as this technology advances: ingenuity, consistency. Another one is creativity. Right now, AI is not able to come up with new ideas. It has the data and the information that's already been thought of and that's been downloaded. So that's important for us to realize that if AI is taking your job, all you have to do is be creative, because that is something that the AI does not have the capability to do. And I think also what people should recognize is the importance of effective communication, because AI might be able to write things down quickly and summarize things, but AI is not able to have the fluctuations in your voice that allow people to relate to you a little better or feel at ease. And AI is not able to change code talk, be able to interact with a group of low income individuals or ethnic group or high class individuals or religious group. AI isn't able to decipher between those things. So if you're someone that is able to relate to different people and gain trust of I guess, demographically diverse populations, that's going to be a very valuable skill to continue to develop and utilize. Me personally, every interview I've ever had, I tell them that one of my strengths is effective communication, because I like talking to people. I'm comfortable talking to people. And, I look people in the eye. I've learned that there's an appropriate amount of eye contact that you should have to truly have effective communication, or else it can be seen more as like intimidating. And I learned that like right at the beginning of college, because people in high school made comments to me about how intense my eye contact was sometimes. And I was like, oh, I thought I was just being like, I don't
a good communicator,
a good listener. I thought that was part of being a good listener,
Yeah.
like making eye contact. But they're like, dang, you're like staring into my soul.
Yeah.
So being able to do those things, because again, like AI, it might stare at you like a robot, but that's gonna not be a therapeutic communication at all.
My mind just imagined like a bashful robot that's like avoiding eye contact and trying to
the cheeks are like red a little bit, like just weird. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I don't see that being able to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
So understanding these different forms of communication, body language, right? AI isn't able to, speak it to someone at an angle versus being squared up on them and like aggressive, kind of strong presence. That's not always the way that you should be talking to people.
Right.
So if you understand those things and you're able to do that, then AI is not going to replace you, because
definitely.
you are going to continue to maintain your value.
And exactly, that gives us so much inspiration to just keep. You said in the last one, like, we're human beings being human, right? So that gives us that inspiration to like keep exercising your human aspects. And you'll always be valuable. No one can replace that.
Yeah, and along with that, developing leadership qualities and being able to be motivational to the people that you work with, that's an invaluable quality as well, because a compute, like if Siri popped on and was trying to tell me, oh, have a great day, Blake, you are going to do fantastic. Like, that's not motivational, right?
No.
The little robotic boy. But if somebody like comes pat me on the back, gives me a smile and gives me words of encouragement, that's very influential in how I'm going to operate throughout the rest of my day. So you have the opportunity to be that individual that does that consistently and gets recognized for that, because the computer that's trying to take your job isn't able to do it. You know?
Exactly. And I always find inspiration, like my mentors, I know they've been through crazy stressful situations where their human systems were pumping adrenaline and cortisol, and they had to overcome those hormones with their thinking and do their job. And that's why they're my mentors, because they've gone through that. But I feel like I could never be mentored by AI because I don't feel like I could empathetically be like, you've had to overcome the nervousness and anxiety of performing. So how could you kind of teach me how to center myself in those moments?
Yeah,
you
because
know?
like you said, there's so much value in the process of getting to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And AI doesn't have the experience of the process. It can lay out how to do it, but AI hasn't done it. AI
Mm-hmm.
has the end result and has the information that has been passed from an individual who actually had to problem solve to figure out that process.
Yep.
And then a lot of those processes are so individual from person to person and different in different situations. AI is going to develop more of a general explanation, and it's going to give you the same answer that it'll give me most of the time. So to have a mentor that's able to really assess you and your performance and able to give you feedback as an individual and also share their personal experiences, that again is invaluable. So as you continue to, explore and take risks, like we were saying, experience new things to add to your arsenal of experiences, that is going to also set you apart from artificial intelligence as it, gains popularity and utilization.
True. That's true. That's motivational for the future and the future of human beings and myself.
Moral of the story, don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
You got this. You just got to keep working on the inside, because the outside is going to do its thing. AI is here. You can't do much about it, but you're also here. You can do a lot about that.
100%. That's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
All right, man. You know what it is. Rhythm and Blessings, RMB. Please like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor. We want to hear your feedback, good, bad, in between. We're here for you, and it's all love. One love.
Peace.
Peace.